It takes experience to understand the league. It takes experience to understand how to build a team correctly. Shocking.
I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 that are 2 possession spreads. Pretty sure that's the most we've seen this season. I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 possession spreads that we've had each week. There's also a couple touchdown spreads out there. So we're starting to see a bigger discrepancy between some of the best and worst talent here. But Michael, I'll just give the floor to you. You wrote about all your favorite teams in this article. So what was kind of your inspiration behind choosing this topic this week?
Well, I think a lot of it was the fact that how bad some of these teams are playing. I mean, when you watch it, I don't know how you can bet on the Carolina Panthers no matter what the spread is. I think there's an instinct in all of us that say, oh, wow, here it is. You're getting 10. I mean, they'll keep it close, but the Panthers are just not very good. And I think, to me, the book knows it now. And so you're starting to see these giant spreads. And for example, I think the Giant game at 6.5 against Pittsburgh hasn't been favored by more than 4 points. You have to go back to Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, think about that. 6.5. Now, you definitely want to be all over the Giants in this. It makes no sense not to be. But, because they haven't been favored by this much, but the book doesn't know what to do. Denver struggles to score points. They're a 9-point favorite against Carolina. 9-point favorite. I mean, the Chargers are a 7.5-point favorite against the Saints. I mean, you want to take that. I mean, these are games you want to take, but you're scared to death to take them because you have no confidence in the opposing quarterback. Detroit, really a good team. Tennessee's as good a defensive team as there is in the National Football League, right? But their offense is a disaster. And if they play Will Levis, you can't take the 11.5 and think you have a chance. I mean, Jameis Winston just got announced the starter for the Cleveland Browns. That wasn't a surprise to any of us, but they're now a 9-point dog. And you want to take Cleveland, but can Cleveland score 9 points? I mean, they scored 9 points in the Eagle game, and thankfully they blocked a punt to cover that number. But if they don't block that punt, they don't cover the number. So it's just very difficult to really handicap these bad teams, and we have way too many of them right now. The Giants are a bad team. They have Evan Neal sitting on the bench, who was a 7th pick overall in the draft, and he's supposed to be a savior for them at the tackle position. They didn't even play him last week, right? Carolina, they're horrible at most every position. And now you layer in the idea that there's going to be trade deadlines come up, right? And so these players know they could get moved. I mean, Amari Cooper feels like he got the world lifted off, the weight off his shoulders by going to Buffalo and not having to play in that mess. You think New England? You think all those players in New England are happy? They're all complaining. Gottschall just got a new contract. He wants to get traded. Kyle Duggar, he just got a new contract. They all want out, because they hate they hate what's going on. And I think, to me, a lot of this is reflective. What I try to say is we're giving guys jobs in the NFL with very little experience. I mean, Robert Kraft came out and said 5 years ago he recognized Mayo as the next head coach of the Patriots. That's how little respect he had for coaching. Mayo never coached before. He was on a trip with him in Israel. He had never coached before, and he recognized this brilliance of a coach. I mean, it's really reminiscent of Jeff Saturday in the park at Indianapolis. Look, I don't care what anyone says, and I'll be emphatic. Coaching matters. Ask Mike Tomlin. Ask Andy Reid. Ask Kyle Shanahan. Ask these guys that win all the time. It matters. And if you don't have a good coach, your program's going down the tubes. Look at the Los Angeles Chargers. You think Brendan Staley was a good coach? Of course, everybody in analytics thought he was a great coach because he went for it on 4th down. But he was horrendous. Now they have one of the best defenses in the league. When he was the coordinator, they had none of them.
Michael, we live in an instant gratification world where if these coaches aren't getting it done in 3-4 years, they're out, sometimes sooner. But, a lot of them will say it takes year 3 to rebuild the roster to how I want to operate it. So it's hard. It's hard to wait that long. But one thing you wrote about in your article is to skirt this problem, the constant hirings and firings, owners have decided to find a bright, young, emphasis on young and inexperienced coach who dominated as a play caller and then subcontract the rest of the staff. And now owners are devaluing the head coach, becoming more involved with the team building element. So I guess my question is for you is how do you think it should look? And how do we even get away from what it's turned into?
Well, let's take Mayo, for example. He spent the time with Belichick, right? If you spend any time around Bill Belichick, one of his pet peeves is you can't punt the ball down the middle of the field. And you have to punt it with height, and you have to punt it towards one sideline or the not. And so what happens? Since he doesn't really do anything with the team, he has no influence on offense, defense, and kicking game. And he proudly announced it to everybody. He's not going to micromanage. Well, they kicked the ball down the field. He had 97-yard punt return against the Jaguars. 97-yard punt return. Like, when does that ever happen? And so to me, what's happening is there's no experience. Look, Mike McDonald could be a really good coach, but Isaiah Simmons lines up in the A-gap on a field goal block. A-gap. He weighs 220 pounds. Why is he in the A-gap? Is he going to power rush the center and the guard who weigh 335 pounds? Of course not. He's going to jump. That's what he's there for. But, of course, they don't make the check to alert jumper in A-gap, and they block it and they lose the game. I mean, but no one pays attention to that. It takes experience to understand the league. It takes experience to understand how to build a team correctly. And we have a lot of teams. Carolina's the perfect example. They hire an offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Dan Morgan, who's never won anything in his career as the general manager, never really been around a building of a program, was working for Scott Federer there in Carolina. They fired Federer, but they promoted Morgan. How does that make sense? And so, look, it's the same thing. You got a lot of people that make bad decisions. Rand Carthon in Tennessee. You really think Will Levis is your starting quarterback? I mean, but he's convinced the owner that that's the way to go. I think it takes experience. I think it takes coaches that need to be seasoned. Zach Orr's 3 years he's been a coach. 3 years. They promoted him to defensive coordinator. And what happened? It was a disaster, and now they have to bring Dean Peace in to help him. Shocking. I said this back in the summer. They better bring somebody in to help them.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.